title. All right, let's try that again because my phone had to ring, right when I was recording. Okay, so let's put this title 3.4, multiply and divide integers. Get out of the sun a little bit. Okay, go ahead and write that title down. If you need to pause, go ahead and do that because I'm just going to keep going, okay? So let's look at our rules for multiplying and dividing integers. These ones are so much easier, you guys, than adding and subtracting because there's no, oh, well, I'm adding, but I have to subtract to find it. You know, there's none of that. It's very straightforward with multiplying and dividing. So as you see here, if I'm multiplying or dividing a positive and a positive number, my answer will be positive. If I'm multiplying and dividing a negative and a negative, I will get a positive answer. If we're multiplying or dividing a positive and a negative, I'm going to get a negative. And then if I reverse that and I'm multiplying or dividing a negative or a positive, I'm going to get a negative. There are no weird little tricks like, oh, you know, subtract and keep the bigger number, same sign rule. There's none of that with multiplying and dividing. It's straightforward. It's just like that. So go ahead and pause, write that down, and then I'm going to continue on. All right. So when we're multiplying or dividing, we're going to see different symbols and signs kind of, and so I want to show you what those mean. If you see a dot or parentheses, that means you're going to multiply. Okay, that means you're going to multiply. If you see the word product, that means to multiply. Okay, product means to multiply. If you see the classic division symbol or the slash, the sideways slash, I forget the name of it, but that guy, that means you're going to divide. Okay. And then the last one, if you see the word quotient, that also means you're going to divide. Okay, so you guys need to be aware of the rules and what these things mean for your assignment this week. So go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and copy all that down, and then just push play when you're ready and we'll do some examples. Let's look at these examples first. So I have a -6 times a 9. Remember, that dot means to multiply, right? I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Means to multiply, okay? So this is where you guys are going to use your multiplication chart and or division chart that I have attached in this week's assignments. I do not want you using a calculator because I want you to figure out the negative signs or positives, whatever. So -6 times 9, you're going to get out that multiplication chart. You're going to either find the row of the 6 or the row of the 9 and go over 6 or go over 9, depending on where you started. So go ahead and do that real quick. You should get 54, right? But we are multiplying a negative and a positive number because there's no sign in front of that, so that means it's a positive number, right? So a negative and a positive, we look up here, a negative and a positive, our answer is going to be a negative. So that has to be a -54, you guys. Okay? And let's look at this next one. We have parentheses this time. Again, parentheses means we're going to multiply. Okay? So -8 times 8. Well, let's first do the numbers. Let's not worry about the signs. 8 times 8 is 64, right? Okay, great. Now we have a negative times a positive again. Okay, there's no sign in front, so it means it's a positive. Again, a negative times a positive up here tells us we're going to have a negative. So it has to be -64. All right, go ahead and pause this. I'm going to turn the page and do some more examples. Go ahead and pause this, please. Alright, let's just look at it one at a time, but since this is on the side, obviously we're going to see both. So, let's look at the first, I guess not first example, let's look at the next example. So we have a negative 10. Actually, let me get this page ready, sorry, so that I can flip it over and we can look at our rules together. Okay, so we have a negative 10 times a negative 6, okay? First, I want you to multiply your numbers together. So 10 times 6 is 60, right? Okay, so now we have a negative times a negative. Let's look back over here. A negative times a negative gives us a positive. So this is going to be a positive 60. You can write the positive in front. It will not mark you wrong, but typically in math, we do not write that, okay? That's why I don't write it, and that's why you don't see it. Like here, you don't see a positive, okay? But you know since there's nothing there, it is a positive. All right, let's look at 4 times negative 4. First, I want you to do 4 times 4, which gives us 8. And then we have a positive times a negative. So let's look over here. A positive times a negative gives us a negative. So we know that our answer has to be a negative. Okay, go ahead and pause it if you need to. We're going to go ahead and move on to some more examples. All right, let's look at this. This is one of those ones that it's kind of like a word problem, but we've been translating mostly. The product of 7 and negative 6. Okay, so we know product, if we look over here, means we're going to multiply, right? So we're going to multiply this. And we can do 7, we can use a dot and do negative 6, like that, or we can just go like that. Either one, okay, means the same thing. So let's go ahead and see what our answer would be, okay? Let me put an or here so we're not confused as to why I have that twice. So let's do, oh, and I forgot my negative sign. Boom, there it goes. Okay, so let's do 7 times 6, all right? Make sure you're using your multiplication chart, you guys. That's going to be a 42. We are multiplying a positive times a negative. So a positive times a negative gives us a negative. So it's going to be a negative 42. Okay? Alright. Go ahead and pause if you need to. I'll leave those up there until I run out of room, obviously. Alright, now let's move on to some division. We have 35 divided by negative 1. Okay? Now remember, we're going to use our chart, but if we were to see this the other way, it would just be written like that, okay? Sometimes this is better for you to understand than written out like this, so that would be what it would look like if we wrote it out that way. So, we have a division chart. Remember, do not use your calculator. 35 divided by negative 1, right? So we're going to find that number on our chart, go over. We're going to not worry about that negative sign first. So we know that any number divided by 1 is that number. So 35 divided by 1 would be 35. But we're dividing a positive and a negative. So again, we're dividing a positive and a negative. Our answer has to be negative. Okay, there's no tricks here, guys. You just need to refer to your chart, memorize it, whatever you got to do. All right, let's look at negative 77 divided by 7. Okay, so let's just figure out that 77 divided by 7, and that should give us an 11. Then we have a negative divided by a positive. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. So this should be negative 11. Okay? All right, go ahead and pause if you need to. At any time, go ahead and pause. I'm going to move on. All right, let's look at a couple more division. Okay, this was written out for us this way, right? So we could write it out the long way also, and it would just look like that, okay? So either way means the same thing. Remember, our line means to divide, or our division sign. And actually, we could add on here, this line could be sideways too, right? So just know that. This line could be this way, or just straight under like this one, okay? Same thing. So let's do 18 divided by 2. That would give us a what? 9. Okay, and then a negative divided by a positive. Negative divided by a positive would be a negative. Okay, so that's going to be a negative 9. Ooh, big number here, okay? Negative 490 divided by 70. Now this one, we're not going to be able to use our chart. So we're going to have to go back to the beginning of school, right? When we did the long division. You guys just loved that. So you're going to write this out. Big number in the doghouse, remember? Don't worry about the signs yet. Okay? So, let's see. We need to figure out 70 can't go into 4, right? So I'm just going to put a 0 there to hold that place. Now, how many times does 70 go into 49? It can't, right? It can't. So how many times can 70 go into 490? Now, if your chart doesn't go that big to 70, which I don't think it does, go ahead and just put 490 divided by 70 in your calculator this one time, and you're going to get a 7. Okay? So 70 times 7 is 490. We're left with nothing. So 7 would be our answer. I'm going to add it over here. Now let's see, we're dividing a negative and a positive. So a negative and a positive gives us a negative answer. So it has to be negative 7. You guys can do the math. Just don't forget to go back and put in those signs, okay? Because they'll be wrong if you forget to do that. Okay, here's our last. Look at that. I fit it all on one page, you guys. Oh my gosh, I'm awesome. Okay, so let me just double check that that's the last one, even though I just told you that. Yeah, it is. Okay, so now we're going to see this one. The quotient of negative 27 and negative 3. What the heck is quotient, right? Well, we just talked about this over here. We're going to look back. Quotient means to divide, okay? So, let's use our little symbol, boom. Or, I'll show you the little sideways guy too. Sometimes you can write like this. So we're dividing negative 27, because when we're dividing, that number has to be on top, right? It's bigger. Over that. And then if we wrote it with the little sideways guy, it would just look like that. So I'm going to actually add, let's go back, turn your page, and also it can be this line. So we're going to add that line in there too. Okay? Okay. So let's do this. So we have, let's do the math first, right? We're going to go 27 divided by 3. You can use your chart for that. Okay? And that should give you a 9. But we're dividing a negative and a negative. So let's look back at our little math Bible, as I call it. We're dividing a negative and a negative. Our answer should be positive. All right? So again, you can write the positive, or you can just write a 9. And typically, like I said in math, algebra, we don't use the plus, we would just put the 9. Okay? All right, guys, so that's our notes. If you have any questions, ask me in class or email me, whatever you need to do. All right, guys.